now's the time as any to talk about the Nintendo Switch, with the Nintendo Switch 2 just around the corner and the Nintendo Direct for it just next month, I believe. I thought, I want to do a little bit of a casual retrospective on the console, like the games that I have for it, memories that I have with the console, showing it off, obviously, the one that I have, which is the Switch OLED for the Tears of the Kingdom version of the console. The last video I did was talking about Breath of the Wild 8 years later, which came out when the Switch came out, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's the birthday of the Switch as well. So I thought, might as well talk about it. I don't play the Switch too often, surprisingly, especially in recent times. I always play a new Zelda game as soon as it comes out, like without doubt. But yeah, I didn't actually get a Nintendo Switch for the first few years that it was out. I think I got it 2019 or 2020. Yeah, I think it was at the very end of 2019, so I didn't get it for a couple years because Breath of the Wild, that came out on the Wii U, so I just got it on there. I didn't need to get it on the Switch. But I'm glad I did, and there was more coming out, like, the Skyward Sword HD remaster, and there was enough on the console that warranted it at the time to upgrade to the Switch. But I just want to celebrate the console and talk about the positives of it and whatnot, and I also want to mention what I'm excited for and hope for the Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, firstly, the amount of games that are on the Switch is insane. I don't have a massive library of games, but I'm thankful for the ones that I do have, and I appreciate the large amount of Zelda games on the console. Again, all my Nintendo consoles, it's primarily Zelda games that I have. That's just, my favorite gaming franchise. Although my favorite console is PlayStation, especially the PS5, my favorite game series in general is Zelda. So I'll always respect Nintendo for that. But yeah, I am very selective with the games that I chose to buy for the Switch, and here's a quick preview there. I'm going to go over these individually and a bit of a showcase and look back on why I got the games that I did, how much I enjoyed them and what have you, so let's go through them. Okay, so firstly, as I mentioned, obviously, primarily play Zelda, so we'll go through the Zelda games that I have first. So we have Tears of the Kingdom. Love this game. I think the story and combat and visuals and everything like that and the aesthetic is better than Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild was my favorite initial playthrough of a game ever. But this game, the finale, honestly probably one of my favorite endings to a video game out of any video game I can really think. And yeah, mesmerizing game. I really recommend it. I'm someone that really loves classic Zelda like Ocarina of Time, but I also appreciate this sort of new era of Nintendo games, but I do hope they go to a bit more of a traditional formula for the next one. And then obviously we have Breath of the Wild, as I said, my favorite initial playthrough of a game ever. And yeah, just amazing time, played it for hundreds of hours. I've obviously played this more than Tears of the Kingdom, because this has been out for much longer. To think that this is 8 years old is still insane to me, but happy birthday to Breath of the Wild. And to round off that trilogy in that Hyrule, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I've only played this once in a bit of the DLC. I honestly really liked it. I liked it a bit more than the original Hyrule Warriors game, which I enjoyed at the time. But this one just felt like more of a Zelda-styled Hyrule Warriors game. The other one was more like too hack and slashy. This one had a bit of puzzle solving and voice acting. And although this was a bit like fan fiction at the end and obviously not canon, it still had some weight to the situation, I suppose, and wasn't too silly or stupid. So I don't know, I thoroughly enjoyed it and was glad to revisit this Hyrule again for another time. And then we have Echoes of Wisdom. Delightful game. It's one that it's not too memorable, but it doesn't do anything wrong either. Pretty middle of the road for Zelda, but that in itself is a pretty high bar. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, this was the last game that I got for the Switch, I believe, last year. So yeah, so that's the latest one that I got there. And then we have Link's Awakening. So this game, it's probably one of my least favorite Zelda games, believe it or not. I just don't appreciate that Zelda's not in it, Ganon's not in it. It's not a familiar setting. it's like, it's refreshing in a sense, but not what I want from a Zelda game. So those reasons alone do put it down, but it is a delightful game, and especially compared to the original, because I've seen a lot of like comparisons and whatnot, especially with the controls and whatnot. I'm like, this is infinitely better than the original. And still a good game, don't get me wrong, but for a Zelda game, it doesn't really have much of what I'm interested in at all, unfortunately. And then Skyward Sword, one of the most underrated Zelda games in my opinion. A lot of connection with this one, and I think the HD remaster was not like too striking, but the 60 FPS and, you know, all the updates they did to the item system and menu and all that kind of stuff, it was enough to like really boost it up at all. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Again, this probably has my favorite Zelda story and characters for the whole game. So yeah, love this one. And then we have the original Hyrule Warriors, the definitive edition. Not very replayable, but the amount of like DLC and characters that's in this version especially is insane. And it's a fun like once playthrough and like, you know, multiverse of a Zelda story, but not one that I really revisit too much because it's not much like a Zelda game at all. And then we get into the games that aren't Zelda related. Well, this one's like very vaguely Zelda related, but Super Smash Brothers. The roster is insane. The visuals are amazing. It looks fantastic. I have bought all the DLC because I'm like, you know, I want to own all the characters. It's just really cool to see. I usually main Ike, Zero Suit Samus, and Link, obviously. I really like him. I like all the different like outfits and cosmetics that they have in the game and all that, and just a really fun party game. You know, it's one of the most popular games of all time. I don't really need to say any more about it, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we have the best Mario Kart game with Mario Kart 8. Stunning game. Again, it's just, it has everything you want in a Mario game, and the amount of DLC they've added to this one, like with all the different courses and whatnot. I haven't bought the DLC for this, or played it, and I haven't played this one like too much, but it just has everything you'd want. And it's cool that I get to play as Link in this one as well. And then branching completely away from Zelda now, so we have Super Mario Odyssey. I don't play many Mario games. I think he's very overrated, but he's just not my style of game. The only other Mario game that I've played like pretty much all the way through was Super Mario 64, because I played the N64 growing up. And this one is like very much in that sort of vein compared to a bunch of the other Mario games, so I appreciated that. And I love the fact that it's been a while since I played it, but I'm pretty sure when you complete the game, you can literally unlock costumes that are the like polygon N64 look for Mario, so I think that's really cool. But yeah, just a very fun game. I haven't revisited it after my first playthrough. Again, I don't play Mario games too often. But yeah, definitely fun enough to have. I don't like it as much as Super Mario 64 because that is a very special place in my heart, but very solid game still. And then we have the only Pokemon game that I have for the Switch, which is Pokemon Legends Arceus. So I haven't played through all the way of this one. I've played about 5-10 hours, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a bit of a Pokemon fan. I've only played all the way through with Pokemon Moon on the 3DS, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I played Pokemon Go very casually and have for a few years, but I'm not too interested or impressed with many of the Pokemon games because they don't look too visually stunning on the Switch compared to like the Zelda games, which is surprising with how big the Pokemon IP is. But this one, I'm like, the fact that it's a bit more Breath of the Wild-esque with like being a bit more open world and you can actually see the Pokemon around, like that's a bit more up my alley. So that's why I got this, and I definitely want to continue this playthrough someday. But I definitely like it enough to obviously keep it and continue playing it. But yeah, definitely one of the more interesting Pokemon games to me. And then we have a very interesting game that I didn't think I'd ever play, is Animal Crossing New Horizons. I played this around the start of the dark times. I'm sure you guys know the times that I'm talking about, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's, again, not one that I really revisit too often. I only played it like a big batch when it first came out. But a very different style game, very refreshing. Yeah, very cozy, delightful game. But yeah, it's not one that's like too up my alley, but I want to try something different and I enjoyed it. And then we have a game that is very bittersweet, and that is Nintendo Switch Sports. Wii Sports Resort is goated, and I'm always going to stand by that. I love that game. I've put hundreds of hours into that game. Ironically, that's probably the Wii game that I've played the most, and I've played a crap ton of the Zelda games that are on the Wii. And this, it's pretty surprising how they sort of fumbled a bunch of aspects to it. Again, you just compare it to Wii Sports Resort and you're like, with how much they should have improved in the span of time between when this came out and when Wii Sports Resort came out, there's just so many things that they should have done better, like have a bunch more sports, visually sort of, been a bit better and all that. But there is enough fun in this, and they did add a couple sports later on, like they added, I think they added basketball later and golf. But again, that should have been in the game at launch, so it's a bit surprising, but it's a Switch sports game, it's a Nintendo sports game, it's one of the mainline ones, it's going to be fun. It just could have been much better in my opinion. And then we have a couple of indie games here that I love these games. And I was really glad to get them on the Switch. But we have the Ori collection, so we have Ori and the Blind Forest and Will of the Wisps. I haven't played the Blind Forest. I played like 20 minutes and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really jiving with this, with the controls mainly. But I played Will of the Wisps first, and I played it on the PC first, and then got this later because I love the game so much. But Will of the Wisps, what a gorgeous game. It is incredibly fun. It's the only Metroidvania game that I've ever played, and I highly recommend it. The story is great, the soundtrack's great, the visuals, the gameplay. It is incredibly fun. I really want to revisit this, and I'm excited to play it on the Switch. And speaking of, again, another indie game, this one's a big comfort cozy game with stunning visuals, and that is Spiritfarer. Very emotional game. I'm glad I found it, but very cozy. Definitely look up a trailer if you haven't seen it and see if it's up your alley. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my playthrough of this. Again, I played it on PC, liked it so much, wanted to grab it on the Switch. So that'll show you how much I like the game. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I love the art style quite a lot. And then this one's a little bit random, but I saw it and I'm like, I want to snag that because it looks very cool, and I'm like, that'd be cool for the Switch. And that is the Star Wars Heritage Pack. I believe that's what it's called, yeah, Heritage Pack. So this has 7 games. So I played Force Unleashed on the Wii. So that's why I wanted to get this, because as you can see at the top there, that's one of the games that it came with. I really wish they did the second Force Unleashed game. I know it's not as good and I don't have as much of a connection with it, but it would have been cool to have it. But yeah, on here we have Jedi Knight Academy, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, the Old Republic games, or the Star Wars Knight games, I mean. Republic Commando and Star Wars Racer. I did play Star Wars Racer as a kid. So I'm like, the modern Star Wars games like Fallen Order and that obviously have that on the PS5. And I associate like the modern Star Wars games with the PlayStation, and like the Lego Star Wars games, what have you. But specifically Force Unleashed and the Pod Racer game, I played them on the N64 and the Wii, and I'm like, it'd be cool to have like an updated version of them for the Switch to keep that in the Nintendo family. So that's why I wanted that. But yeah, so that's all the Switch games that I have. So I want to talk a little bit about what I really hope the Nintendo Switch 2 has. Again, I think it's a bit of an odd choice for them to do that. Literally just call it Nintendo Switch 2. It just, like, I don't know, you see how innovative the consoles between have been. Like, you go from the Wii to the 3DS and then the Wii U and then the Switch, and like, yeah, that's all great and everything. And this does just look like a better Switch, but this needs to be significantly better. Because the Nintendo Switch just isn't very strong, It only goes up to 1080, and the games just aren't very powerful. You look at a lot of ports from games that are on the PS5 versus this, and they just look awful, a bunch of them. Some of them are pretty decent, so I'm not completely knocking it, but I just really hope the next one just has like a way better core that can play things in 4K, and we can have access to more ports. And I don't know, there's just a lot that I think they can do, so we'll see what happens next month in the Nintendo Direct. But either way, just wanted to do a quick video like this. I don't think it was actually too quick, it might be a bit longer, but anyways, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what Switch games you've collected, or favorite memories with the console, and what you hope for with the Nintendo Switch 2. And yeah, see you guys next time.